back with Dan Henninger, and we're also joined by Wall Street. The FBI this week announced the arrest of two men charged with operating a secret police station in New York City designed to surveil and silence Chinese citizens. In criminal complaints unsealed Monday in Brooklyn, the Justice Department said the men, both American citizens, created the first known overseas police station in the United States on behalf of the Chinese Ministry of Public Security. Federal prosecutors also charged dozens of other Chinese officers and officials with harassing Chinese nationals in New York and using social media platforms to intimidate Chinese democracy activists in the U.S. We're back with Dan Henninger, and we're also joined by Wall Street Journal editorial board member Colin Levy. So, Colin, tell us what the indictment, what's the significance of this for U.S. security from this complaint?
Paul, I think this was a really important moment because it really shows that the Justice Department and the FBI is on its front foot and it's willing to confront China's efforts to export repression. I mean, that's what was happening here. These guys were operatives of the Chinese government. They were posing as a cultural association that was supposedly there to help the Chinese American community. And instead, what they were doing was forcing everyone around them to look over their shoulders and actually go after some democracy activists in this country. And I think this is a really important step because the First Amendment in the United States protects everyone who wants to express their political views, and it doesn't matter whether you're born in China or not.
So how do these police stations work and other attempts by Chinese government to intimidate people? Is it a question of, are they listening posts? Are they intimidation sessions where they call you in and say, you know what, your mom's still back home, son, and we don't want anything bad to happen to her? How does it work?
Absolutely, Paul. That's a little bit of how it works. These are whisper campaigns. They are sort of whispered threats. As you mentioned, many of the Chinese American community here have family back home. And by the way, that is something that Chinese are very used to confronting. Certainly, I was very aware of that. I lived in Hong Kong for a while, and many residents of Hong Kong have family on the mainland. And long before we were really aware of how much the Chinese government was cracking down on Hong Kong, people there were very careful about what they said, where they went. They knew that they were often under surveillance. Quickly, I remember an incident in 2018 when I went to a Tiananmen vigil in Victoria Park, and many of my local friends weren't willing to go because they thought the cameras there and the AI that was there would allow them to be recognized, and that could have repercussions for their families. So that's true here too.
All right, so these arrests concern this New York station, but how extensive are these around the United States?
Unfortunately, we know that they exist in other places as well. They exist in Los Angeles, in San Francisco. This is from Safeguard Defenders, which is a Madrid-based human rights group. They've said that there may even be one in Nebraska. And they exist in other countries as well, Paul. It's not just the United States. China has reached into Australia. Ireland has complained about this, Canada. So this is really China's effort to extend its kind of autocratic repression to its citizens around the globe.
This is something I don't think the United States can allow, Dan. I mean, we can't do anything about how China treats its own people in China. I mean, we'd like to, but we can't, ultimately, except to speak up about it. But here, if you're on U.S. soil, you should be able to demonstrate your First Amendment rights. You should be able to say what you think about the Chinese government. So this is really about how much America is going to support America's fundamental principles for the people who are resident here.
Yeah, well, this is a dilemma for an open society like ours or Australia or most of the democracies. We do not surveil people all the time, as Colin was describing, happens in Hong Kong and China. And thus it allows agents for countries like Communist China to travel around the United States doing this sort of thing. FBI Director Christopher Wray has given speeches describing what's going on at significant length. He has said they have at least 1,000 cases of economic espionage that they are investigating.
From China.
From China. That the Chinese go into universities and intimidate Chinese American academics, try to recruit them. He's described something called Operation Fox Hunt, which Chinese have been running here since 2014, to intimidate Chinese citizens, try to force them to go back to the United States, or as you were suggesting, saying, we know where your family is back there. Unless you come work for us or go back, we are going to lean on your family. That's why this event, this police station, arresting these two, is so significant. Finally, we are elevating it. We're making it clear that we are going to find these people and we will prosecute them and push back against importing the Chinese surveillance state into the United States.
All right. Thank you both. We appreciate it. We have to take one more break. When we come back,